We are gathered here today and tomorrow to reflect on the state of democracy in East Africa in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, which is ravaging the world. Africa must suffer from fewer deaths, no doubt thanks to the quick responses of our governments and the youth of our population. But we still suffer more from its economic and social effects in the months and years to come. The pandemic is not just a health or a socioeconomic crisis. It is also a political crisis, and it is testing the authority and legitimacy of leaders across the world, on the continent and in the East African region. So as we navigate the complexities of COVID, I urge us to ensure that we do not allow the integrity of our electoral processes to be weakened by the pandemic. I'm not a diplomat, so you will have to excuse my blunt remarks today. I will not sugarcoat the realities we are seeing unfolding in the region. Governments in many parts of our continent and within the East African region in particular are using COVID as a scapegoat and an excuse to influence elections and shift the balance of power in their favor. COVID is enabling repressive responses to challenges to the status quo. This is very dangerous, and we must guard against the shrinking of freedom of speech, whether it be the freedom of individual expression, that of political parties, civil society organizations, or the media. It is no secret that incumbents are hijacking public health protocols and mandates to make it difficult for voices of opposition to be heard and engage on equal footing in the campaigning process. There have been questionable restrictions of movement and limitations on gathering, as well as postponement of elections, which have been harmful to the democratic process. We must think and act more creatively and fairly to ensure that there are safe and healthy ways for all our politicians and citizens to meaningfully participate in elections. Questionable electoral results should be able to be challenged in court, even virtually if needs be. Impartial observers must still be allowed to monitor polling stations in COVID-compliant ways. Political gatherings that are open air and physically distant should be allowed to take place. I'd like also to call for peace. On the streets of Tanzania earlier this month, we have seen peaceful protests being met with violence resulting in hospitalization and arrests. Threats of targeted violence have been no stranger in Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda as well. There must be no tolerance under any circumstance for the silencing of opposition, intimidation tactics, and outright threats to life that we have seen surface in a number of countries in the region. We ourselves, citizens of Africa, are to blame for the political processes they are unfolding before our eyes. Elections and those we elect to govern us are the products and fruit of our own labor. We therefore get the quality of elections and leaders we deserve. Identity politics have no place in elections. As citizens, we need to be more responsible in our choices. We need to choose our leaders based on the strength of their policies and potential impact of their agendas to change our lives for the better. Civil society, academics, political scientists need to produce strategies to lead us to change our status quo. We need accountability systems to ensure the electorate are educated and have a voice, and that they hold the politicians to account. COVID presents many challenges, but also many opportunities. By forcing us to become more virtual, for example, social media has opened up spaces for candidates to engage with voters in more direct and immediate ways compared to traditional forms of campaigns, such as in-person rallies, costly physical advertising, and the traditional media. That said, there are worrying developments within Africa's social media landscape, specifically regarding the impact of restrictions on social media and free press on democratic accountability and advocacy. There have been widespread reports in the region of heavy-handed regulatory oversight of social media users, tightening restrictions for traditional media and new outlets, blocking or slowing social media apps, to name a few. Access to and use of the media to reach the greatest number of voters should be guaranteed for all. As we move to a more online world, I encourage us to do so in ways which enhance the accessibility and flow of accurate information in the political domain and guard against the dangers of online propaganda, violent and hate speech, and fake news. Let us use the tool of digital connectivity and interactivity to our benefit to advance democracy in the region. COVID is providing us the occasion to be more inclusive in the political process, exchange and encourage a diversity of thought, and reach more citizens with political knowledge. With so many innovations in the mobile money and the digital finance space, I challenge East Africa to innovate and be a model for the rest of the continent and indeed the world to follow when it comes to online political participation as well. As Uganda prepares for its own upcoming presidential elections in 2021 and Kenya in 2022, containment measures to curb the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic should be centered around upholding the democratic processes and taking a little toll as possible on political life. Kenya will soon become a member of the Security Council, the most powerful body in international relations. I call on Kenya to use its position not just to speak for Africa, but also to advocate for more inclusive democratic governance globally in the interest of peace and security for all. Kenya has an opportunity to elevate the relevance of Africa in international discourse and advocate strongly for the strengthening and defense of multilateralism. Effective multilateralism serves the interests of the global family and is desperately needed to redress the inequities and imbalances exposed by COVID-19, especially here on the continent. The growing threats to multilateralism, democracy, and human rights have to be challenged loud and clear from the grassroots to the halls of the United Nations. If you are here at this conference, it means you have a fair degree of freedom and power. Use that influence to redesign stronger democratic institutions and electoral processes that benefit us today as well as the generations of tomorrow. I thank you.